The Mercedes-Benz E-Class, Lexus GS and BMW 5 Series are go-to luxury sedans for a huge number of drivers, and for good reason. These sophisticated cars lead the segment. But there are plenty of other nameplates to choose from. People craving something outside the ordinary can opt for a Cadillac CTS or maybe even Jaguar's XF. Still, they could take home one of these two models, a couple dark horses that are largely under the radar. Did you hear that? Both Lincoln and Volvo are hitting their stride after years on the automotive sidelines. These resurgent companies have introduced new sedans, each with its own unique take on luxury. The reborn Continental is a product Lincoln can at last be proud of. Bucking the alphanumeric nonsense that's overtaken today's industry, the company tapped its rich heritage and resurrected this fabled nameplate, applying it to a glittery four-door that is rife with unique features. While the Conti is unabashedly American, Volvo's S90 is restrained and elegant from every angle. Packing an unexpectedly efficient drivetrain and a giant touchscreen infotainment display, this sedan is light on its feet and high on good taste. In spite of their disparate philosophies, these cars have more in common than you might expect. Each one features forced induction, has all-wheel drive, and is equipped with a spacious, well-trimmed interior. They're also dimensionally quite similar, even if the Lincoln looks a lot bigger. Overall, it is about 6 inches longer with a wheelbase that's roughly 2 inches greater. It's also a wee bit wider and taller, though these tape measure advantages don't necessarily translate into more space. All in, the Volvo's trunk is supposedly 1 cubic foot larger, measuring 17.7. Surprisingly, these cars are well matched, if unexpected rivals, though they do start to diverge once you dive into the details. Our Continental Reserve model is powered by a Lincoln-exclusive 3-liter twin-turbocharged V6. Quiet and refined, this engine delivers 400, both horsepower and pound-feet of torque. It's matched to a 6-speed push-button automatic transmission and standard torque vectoring all-wheel drive. Fuel economy is disappointing at 16 miles per gallon city, 24 highway. Still, there's enough sauce to squirt this 4,500-pound sedan to 60 miles an hour in the mid 5-second range. But if less is more, 2 other V6s are available. Each can be had with either front or all-wheel drive. As tested, our Conti cost a princely $75,965, though a passel of luxury amenities help justify that figure. Things like LED headlamps, a pounding 19-speaker Revel sound system, and 30-way adjustable front bucket seats. In comparison, the S90's as-tested price of $66 and change seems downright reasonable. This T6 Inscription model features a turbo and supercharged 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. Pressurized to the point of bursting, it punches far above its weight class, churning out 316 horses and 295 pound-feet of torque. Making the most of all of that is an advanced 8-speed gearbox. A T5 version is also available, which gives up 66 horses. Despite its significant power deficit compared to the hot rod Lincoln, Volvo's S90 feels every bit as quick, and you can thank its more resourceful transmission and near 500-pound weight advantage for the sprightly performance. It may not sound as nice or feel quite as smooth, but 4-cylinder efficiency is hard to argue with. This Swede should return 22 mpg around town and 31 if you stick to the interstate. Okay, now that you've got a good overview of these two cars, let's climb inside, and since I'm closer to the Conti, well, why don't we start there? Making a positive first impression are the standard E-Latches, a gratuitous touch that helps this car feel special. Ditto for the soft closing doors. They up the premiumness factor. Wait, is that a word? Well, it is now. Passengers in steerage are treated to miles of legroom, or at least an advertised 41 inches and change. Now, the $4,300 rear seat package gives you a nifty control console and adjustable backrests with lumbar, among other things. It's all pretty great, but there's not enough headroom. I'm only 6 foot tall and I've got to slouch so my nugget doesn't hit the headliner here. Frankly, this is unacceptable in a car like this, especially one that's going to be used for livery service. Now, fortunately, things aren't so bad up front. If you've watched any of my previous vehicle reviews, you are undoubtedly aware that I have high standards when it comes to seating comfort. I'm not a big fan of these front bucket seats. However, I'm not a fan of these front seats. Also, I am no fan of these front seats. They're too low, too flat. They are kind of flat and lifeless. The lower cushion is pretty flat, it's pretty lifeless. There's a sort of strange lump in the lower cushion that runs right across your thighs, which makes me feel like I'm leaning forward. Don't care for that. See what I mean? Fortunately, this is not a problem here since we've got the optional $1,500 perfect position buckets that adjust in 30 ways. 30! They're also heated, cooled, and have a degree in massage therapy. They take a while to get set just right, but spend 10 minutes or so playing around with the controls and you'll be happy for hours in the saddle. And that is exactly what this car is best at, long-haul driving. Helping ease the burden of interstate slogs is a cabin that is luxurious, it's stylish, well-built and made of premium materials, and even this car's abundant technology is all very easy to use. You can pretty much just jump in and figure it out. Aside from a few cheap touch points here and there, the Conti feels rich. I just wish there weren't so much chrome trim in here. It's gaudy and frankly blinds me whenever the sun is shining. Vision, of course, is kind of important when driving. As for electronics, the Sync 3 infotainment system flies and is super intuitive. Ditto for things like the adaptive cruise and climate controls. It's all easy to decipher without needing to open the owner's manual. And Volvo, this is how you do technology, but more on that in a minute. Not surprisingly, with 400 horsepower on tap, this Lincoln accelerates effortlessly. It scoots from a standstill and can rocket you down the highway with alarming ease, though I have noticed that sometimes the transmission doesn't shift quite as smoothly as it should. The Continental is seriously quick for something this heavy. It's incredibly refined, too. Probably one of the quietest cars I've tested in recent memory, thanks in part to things like laminated glass. The tires are actually foam lined with the 20-inch wheels, and of course it has active noise cancellation. Aside from all this, there's also Lincoln Drive Control, a system that allows you to adjust the car's feel to suit your mood. With 3 settings, comfort, normal, and sport, you can easily alter the suspension stiffness and steering feel. Frankly, I find comfort to be the best because it gives this car a velvety smooth ride, which is appropriate for its character, though for the record, in this setting, it never feels sloppy, though occasionally you do get a little bit of floatiness over some larger inputs. Moving to the S90, it lacks fancy door handles, but what it does have is an elegant cabin. Satin trim, open-pore wood, and leather that is even softer than the Lincoln's makes this a supremely pleasant place. Also, the back seat has tons of headroom, despite the spec sheet claiming it has just 1/10 of an inch more than the Continental. Clearly somebody doesn't know how to read a tape measure. Lincoln. It's just a shame the technology in this car is such a letdown. Volvo's Sensus user interface is messy as all get out. A 9-inch portrait display is the heart of this system, and it looks great. Unfortunately, though, it is slower than a $99 off-brand Android tablet. Compounding this, the menus and layout are just confusing. Ditto for the controls in the instrument cluster. You know, the folks in Dearborn learned a hard lesson with infotainment tech. For years, their My Ford and My Lincoln touch systems got pummeled for not performing well, and Perhaps Volvo should have learned a thing or two from its previous owner. But where the S90 really impresses is out on the road. It feels, gosh, half a ton lighter than the Conti, despite only weighing about 470 pounds less. It is nimble and engaging instead of quiet and coddling. Not surprisingly, this Volvo's steering is more direct and precise than the Lincoln's variable ratio setup. Matching its rival, that double induction four-cylinder makes this car accelerate with incredible ferocity, all while burning minimal amounts of fuel. Excellent work, guys. The S90 is impressive 6 ways to Sunday, but one area where I think it falls a little short is in the refinement department. While hardly raucous, its interior is noticeably louder than the Lincoln's. Also, I find the ride to be unnecessarily stiff with no real benefit. I mean, this, after all, is a luxury car, not something you're going to be snaking through the Angeles Crest Highway on a Saturday morning. The sun visors are another thing that annoyed me. They don't slide and therefore can't provide extra coverage for taller drivers. How foolhardy. Alrighty, after spending plenty of time in each of these capable luxury sedans, I've now got to pick a favorite, something that has proven to be incredibly difficult because they are just so accomplished. Still, in order to reach some sort of meaningful conclusion, here is a quick recap of each one. The Lincoln Continental offers a smoother ride, quieter cabin, easier to use technology, and a few more luxury flourishes. Volvo's S90 counters this onslaught with far more backseat headroom, much higher fuel economy, steering that's not all wonky, and an overall feeling of lightness. Now, both cars have gorgeous interiors and are faster than you'll ever need. Downsides for each are few. The Lincoln's damn back seat still irks me, and there's also too much chrome trim inside, plus it's heavy and addicted to fuel. In comparison, the Volvo has a poor infotainment system, noisier cabin, and stiff ride. Now to crown the winner of this dark horse luxury comparison. Both of these cars are quite likable. A coin toss could practically be used to crown a victor, since I've been vacillating all week about which one I prefer. But if I had to choose a winner right now, well, I'd give the nod to the S90 here, and by a very slim margin. Ask me to do the same tomorrow, and I'd probably have a different answer. Volvo's Sensus user interface is messy as all get out. I'm going to put that at the end for some friendly, colloquial old-timiness. People love old-timiness. Don't look at me like that. It's a humdinger. Shucks almighty. And build speed with alarming velocity when you're speeding on the freeway. Here, that's true. That's true. Power! Which is just a function of torque and RPM.